Everybody, Scoutcrafter here again. I have some really beautiful Crescent screwdrivers, vintage, that I think you're going to love, and we're going to refurbish them and show you what they're all about. So let's go downstairs and check them out. Okay, today's project is these beautiful, well, two of them are beautiful. One is, we'll get to that, but two beautiful Crescent T-handled screwdrivers, and you see how these work. These are patent pending, and they were made by Crescent, and they were the advertisement was that you could use it as a screwdriver, as a small hammer. This is a weighted area down here, and my buddy Joe from Joe's shop did a review and a cleanup on one of these screwdrivers for a friend of his. And the funny thing is, I had this sitting on the bench waiting to be done, this one, and I was looking at his. I was like, wow, his looks bigger than mine, because I had this one. So I went out and I got a larger one. I don't know how many they made of these, but once you feel the quality of these things, you're going to want one. But let's clean these up. I'll show you how they work. And you see there's a little bend in there. You know it. We got to go to the dake. Let's get to it. Let's straighten them out, clean them up, and we'll get back and talk about it. Now, what we love working with the dake, the best part of it is that everything is slow and methodical, and we can think things out before we jump in. Now, if you look at the screwdriver, you can see there's a definite bow in it. It's bowing that way to the left. If I turn it this way, it's bowing to the right. Now, I looked at it sideways. It looks to be right about where that black, you see that little marker I put there? That looks to be about the high point. And you have to figure out, like, if you were using your hands, how would you bend this back? You would probably put your thumb here and just push like this. So I'm going to try and duplicate that on the date. Okay, here's the plan. Now, because this has a slight curve to it, we're going to use a piece of plywood. You want to use plywood because regular wood has a tendency to split or whatever. Plywood will tend to bend more before it gives. We're going to keep the flat part of the blade on that other piece of metal, and that little black mark that I made there where I think the high part is, we're going to put right under the center of the ram. And by holding my finger here and pressing down, we should get some bend out of this and be able to bend it back. And here's where you want to, you look down. Now you can see we got pressure on here, and sometimes you have to go past the bend, remember, to get it. Now you're going to hear the wood. It's probably going to split. It's going to, and you're going to keep doing it until it compresses enough where we'll have enough bend in it. And yeah, you see now it's reverse bending. And I'll lower the camera down if I can a little bit, and you can see it's reverse bending. And that's where we want it. We have about a little bit over a ton of pressure, and we'll bring it up and check it out. See, now when we release it, it'll spring back, and then we'll see what it looks like there. We'll take a look and see if we straightened it out a little. Okay, this is after the first attempt, and you could see we did it. We took a lot of the bend out, but not all of it. And we have now just a little bit on this side here, and now we just got to come in and touch here. And like that, just a little bit over here. It looked like there was a compound bend to it, but we'll straighten that part out now. Okay, this should be the last bend. It's real close to the tip there. This is a little bit of a tedious process because you don't want to rush it and you don't want to bend it too much. So you just keep an eye, just come down a little bit. It doesn't need a lot of pressure. You're just tweaking it to try and get it straight and get it as best you can. Okay, we finished tweaking it here, and I'm calling that pretty straight. Looks good to me, looks good to the eye. I held the straight edge against, but it's curved, so it's hard to determine, but that looks good. And now we're going to take it and address some of the other parts, like we have a little chip in the blade in the side here, and of course, just somebody must have put a wrench on it or whatever, but we'll work on that. And then the knurling, see there's a few spots in the knurling that look a little dented. And let's go do that. Okay, two quick things to point out. Do you see how nicely that plywood conforms to whatever shape you're going to use and compresses? It's an excellent thing. Keep these little scraps of plywood if you have a hydraulic press. It really comes in handy. Another thing I want to point out, to see the tip of this, somebody tried a grind of, I don't know if they were using it as a chip. I don't know. We'll straighten that out, but see how the tip is sharp? That shouldn't be like that. We're going to straighten this whole thing out and make it look nice. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what it looked like before we started. And we're calling this project finished. Look how pretty these came out, huh? This is just what they would have looked like when they were brand new. We were able to get the tips the way they should be, polished everything out, and as you can see when you open this up, there's no slop at all. The little hammer polished that out, and it's just adorable. These things are so nice, and I could tell, even when Joe was restoring his friends, I could tell that Joe took a real liking to this, because he was saying, wow, I can't believe when you hold this in your hand, the quality is just so apparent. And compared to obviously the newer one, let's go through the new one. Now, before we get to the dessert, we have to eat our vegetables. This is what Crescent is producing today as their T-handle screwdriver. I picked this up at Tractor Supply Company. I paid $4. It was on, it was in those bins that, you know, the sale bins. And, okay, look, here it is, fully extended. Now the handle is like a polyethylene, or it's a strong plastic, but here it is, closes like this, and pretty ergonomic except for this big gap here that has sharp edges. And then when you open it up to the T-handle, it's sloppy. That's the only thing I could say, sloppy. And look at that pin. That's the pin that's giving you the torque. So I don't know how strong that pin is going to be, but it has the typical, you can take it apart, and you have the you know, like a regular screwdriver, and have the multi-screwdriver. It's got the Phillips on one end, the standard on the other, and then you could take them apart and things like that. And then it has two nut drivers. So it has that going for it. It is, you know, and then it's got this, you know, it's funny, Alan from Curiosity Forge was talking about the Gator Grip socket, you know, and sure enough, this is like a mini Gator Grip, you know, which is nothing but a crappy design of apparent, you know, when you put the nut in there, it's supposed to fit, and, you know, because of the system, it's supposed to wrap around the nut or fastener and take it apart. But these things are always notorious for not working well. And this is what we've come to from 1915 to this. Okay, let me get to the design. Well, about 1915, 1916, J.E. Johnson is a tool and die maker, and he designs these beautiful, it's a hammer and handle. That's what it's called, a hammer and handle screwdriver. And you can see how this works. This pulls down and becomes a screwdriver, and it has a beautiful knurled surface, and it's just a joy. I wish you could feel it. I wish you could hold it in your hand. It's just such a nice tool. He designs this beautiful tool. Here's the other part of the hammer. There I am. And it's just a delight. And you can see here, the writing on here is, it says, you could just about make it out, Crescent Tool Company, Jamestown, New York. And on the back it says Pat Pending. And again, when you see Pat Pending, again, these date back to the, you know, probably the early 20s, or by the late 20s, they pretty much stopped making them. They were designated the K25 was the tool name, and this would be the 24. They made a 25 and 26. So there's 3 models that I think are available, but I only have the 2 here. And you can see the difference in sizes here. Look, I don't push old tools, but I'm telling you, if you can get a hold of one of these, you will not regret it. I mean, a lot of the gimmick tools I talk about, but this is, and you can ask Joe, I mean, this thing is just beautiful to hold. And the way it's made, the positive, there's no rattle, there's no, there's not one part of cheapness to this wrench. You can see we straightened it out nice, and with the polish and everything, it came out real good. We just did the tip over, so it's back the way it should be. Tried a little bit of hollow ground on there, and this is just a joy to use. If I sound excited, it's because this is the tool to have. I mean, it's so great. J.E. Johnson, 1915, patented 1917, K24 hammer and handle screwdriver by Crescent Tool Company. Really beautiful. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks very much. Take care and have a nice day.